Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to be here today. I appreciate you all taking time out of a clearly very busy Friday to be here today. I appreciate it. Just to start off with a little bit of a quote from a great person. As Maya Angelou said, diversity is a rich tapestry, and each thread of this tapestry is of equal value regardless of the color. I am Disha, most of you know me. If not, I lead I&D for Schindler India. It's my pleasure to welcome you here today, and it's great to see all of you who are here today and committed to our journey of furthering inclusion and diversity in Schindler. At Schindler, I&D is at the heart of what we do and who we are. We elevate people. It's about creating opportunity. It's not about creating opportunities for specific groups of people. It's about creating an environment where every individual, regardless of their background or circumstances, feels like they're here and empowered to thrive, lead, and succeed. Diversity includes all of us, regardless of our gender, race, religion, ethnicity. We are a part of what makes Schindler such a vibrant ecosystem. And in any ecosystem, the majority has the responsibility to enable and empower those who are the minority. In our case, that's our men. Our male allies have an essential job ahead of them, and the job is to empower and support the women to lead the way and build a culture where everyone thrives. A truly inclusive workplace is where everyone across genders, roles, levels works together to break down the barriers that we have, and I'm grateful that we're all here and on board with this idea. The topic of today's session is carving your own path, establishing influence in the workplace. This is aligned with Schindler's commitment towards empowering our employees, especially our women, to take ownership of their careers. Establishing influence is not just about authority or leadership positions, it's about having the confidence and the support, more importantly, to have your voice heard, to speak out your ideas, and to lead change in the organization. We're fortunate today to have Ms. Shanta Valluri Gandhi, a leader who's carved her own path and has remarkable influence in the corporate world and tremendous impact in the world of diversity, equity, and inclusion. With this, I'll hand over to Jyoti, our CHRO, who will introduce Shanta and begin the discussion. Thanks, Jyoti.
Hello, hello. Hello. Sorry, have you joined online as well? Okay. Okay, so thank you, Disha, and the entire I&D team for organizing this session. So it is my great honor to introduce today's speaker, Ms. Shanta Valluri Gandhi. Shanta brings with her an impressive career spanning over 30 years. She's marked by her passion and her innovation and inclusion and her transformational leadership. She has held several pivotal roles in the financial services sector, including her time as the head of human resources, CSR, and internal branding at RBL, where she was a key player in the bank's transformational journey. Now, as an independent consultant and board member across multiple organizations, Shanta continues to make significant contributions. Through these roles, she has consistently demonstrated her commitment to fostering diversity, inclusion, and equity efforts, and she's been at the forefront of social impact projects. Most notably, and she has helped establish Mumbai's first trans cafe to support and uplift the trans community. I think that's an absolutely fantastic initiative, and I've not heard a lot of all of this happening, so thank you and congratulations for having achieved that. Her work extends to talent management and people transformation, where she continues to drive organizational change and mentor leadership teams. Shanta's accolades speak for themselves. She has been recognized as a leading woman in banking, received multiple awards for her contributions to CSR, and she's been a champion for I&D initiatives throughout her career. She's also a Jombe mentor for their leadership programs, and I'm hoping some of our participants will get the opportunity to be mentored by you. Today's session on carving your path, establishing influence in the workplace, is an opportunity to learn from her extensive leadership and deep insights on diversity and creating a sustainable impact, and how do we invest in ourselves, learn from our life experiences, and get to these leadership positions. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Ms. Shanta Valluri Gandhi, and I'm looking forward to this conversation with her.
Thank you, Jyoti. So do I sit here?
Yes. as agreed.
Yeah, thank you Disha for opening the session. Thank you everyone for coming in this evening, on a Friday evening, to listen to us. My only crib is, can you move a little in the front? I'm not so bad. Just move a little ahead, yeah?
Yeah, we won't get up from our seats at all.
Yes,
We'll
I
be seated.
promise. I'm going to sit. Thank you, Jyoti.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Shanta, we also have, apart from all the colleagues who have taken out time to listen to us in the room, we also have our CEO and President who's joined us on call. Nitin he couldn't be here because he had to be in Pune, but he has taken out time to join us on the call.
Lovely.
And we also have the honor of having Sheetal in the room with us. As we earlier introduced, Sheetal she heads our HR for Asia Pacific and happens to be in Mumbai. Of course, it was a planned visit, but I'm happy it coincided with this event. So thank you everyone once again for listening to us, and I hope that you take some good tips out of this interaction.
Yeah, and thank you Nitin for joining in to listen to us, and thank you Sheetal for being a part of this session. And Jyoti, welcome to Schindler.
Thank you.
You yourself are a little baby of less than 3 months, so welcome to Schindler.
Yes, thank you. All right, so this is going to be very interactive, and I've heard you and you speak from the heart, and we expect nothing less of that. So I want to start with understanding a little bit about your impressive journey over the last 30 years. What have been some of those pivotal moments which have carved your leadership and made you into what you are today?
You know, these questions are so straight and pointed. So let me tell you, these words are very nice. Leadership, all of these. But let me be honest with you all. I started my career in the late 80s as a telemarketing executive. Okay, and why I want to start the journey from there is that it's not about how big or how small you are. It's about what you want to be and where do you see yourself in the future. I was an MA gold medalist from Bombay University, and strangely so, when you are a good student, you are supposed to pursue academics if you're a good student, right? That's the model. So for me, I was also keen on looking at other glamorous professions, not just be an academic oriented person, and I tried to do a receptionist job in Ambassador Hotel. I know how many of you know Ambassador Hotel. You know Ambassador Hotel those days? Yeah. So I started my career trying to do that job first. And obviously, there was no mental mathematics happening at that point of time. So I went back to starting my career as a telemarketing executive. Eventually, of course, I left as part of the core transformation team of RBL Bank. I joined the startup bank as Ratnakar Bank in 2010, and nothing happened by chance, okay? Everything happened by choice. Everything happened by choice. So when I look at my 35 years actually, that I was a full-time corporate executive, starting from the late 80s to leaving full-time work 2 years ago, that too by choice, because I wanted to invest in the social sector. So leadership actually happened by default. I was an individual performer. I'm sure many of you here are also individual performers. And suddenly you are, bestowed with a team when you're a good performer. And I think when you're bestowed with a team, it teaches you how to lead a team. So by default, from an individual telemarketing executive, I started leading a team because in those days, we were probably the only differentiating factor. I think my first early learnings was, we were doing a mock call. I was pathetic. Okay, my mock call was very bad. And, you'll always have colleagues who are great at verbal diarrhea. You have colleagues, right, who are great at verbal diarrhea. See, I see grins on everybody's face, yeah? So we had 1 or 2 of those colleagues who were great at verbal diarrhea, who walked away with the accolades with the bosses, and you were just trying to work hard, right? So I think my early days was a bad performance, and that probably made the change. And I said, if I have to really do well as a telemarketing executive, I just need to excel. So when people do bathroom singing, I did bathroom speaking, and I think it was all about excellence. I think that will be my first, first learning in my life is how do you excel in whatever you do. Whether you're good at academics, not good at academics is not important. When you're spending 10 hours of your life at something called a workplace with a clear ambition, I think that's what all leadership is all about. That's how I started my career, and I'm very proud to say I was a telemarketing executive. So I have no problems in saying that ever in my life, that you can dream big if you think big and you know you can excel in whatever you do. So that's my leadership story starting. Okay.
Absolutely fantastic. I think great inspiration for everybody who may think that, oh, I'm just here. I mean, it's never like that, right? The end point is always what you decide and the choices you make and how you excel in everything you do, and everybody can get there. All right, so let's talk about who has influenced you, as you today influence so many people. Who has influenced you early on in your career or continues to influence you even today? And what were some of the things that you looked up to and imbibed from people?
So I think there are many instances. I mean, you know, I don't think there's one person you can single out. I think most of you would know that, right? When we're in college, we look at our professors, or you know, you look at some of your better students in the class, you try to imbibe them. But for me personally, I think I was quite lucky to have very good male bosses. I must thank all my male bosses, and I want to single this out, you know, because I know there'll be a question on men as allies, because, you know, I truly believe the men were great help in my life. So very early on in my first job, which was a telemarketing executive, I moved on to doing home loans with them. Because as you excel, you learn, so people give you, it was an outsourced agency. I used to work for Citibank on behalf of Citibank. And you know, the Citibankers used to impress me a lot. You know, I used to wonder, what is it that they have that I don't have? You know, I'm working as an outsourced agent. Why am I not part of the banking fraternity? I think that, I would say, is indirect mentorship. I should look at them and try to imbibe what they are, so that would be my starting point. My second, of course, I owe a lot to one single person that I genuinely believe was a turning point in my life. I was very young. I joined a company which was into financial services, which was doing hire purchase leasing. And this gentleman was one of those do not touch me, sits out of Delhi, and I used to work out of Bombay. Fabulous environment that way in Bombay. So you know, because I have no brand, I'm quite open in my conversations, so please don't take it amiss if I am being authentic in my conversations. So I had a colleague who was in a relationship with my boss, okay, and you know, this colleague was barely working, but she was in a relationship with my boss, and he was local, and I was also working in the same company, and I was doing a lot of work around that. And I was concerned about how my appraisal process will go through. Okay, and that time we didn't have anything called appraisal, it was just performance led. I must thank this gentleman who was sitting out of Delhi, because what happened is I joined the company, I was just about a few months into the company, and I wanted guidance, right, because I was barely in my early 20s. And I really didn't know which way to go, because, you know, hire purchase leasing was new to me. I had come from a different industry. All of us go through it, right? Today you have fancy terminologies like induction programs and DEI and, you know, Vishaka committee and things like that. In the early 90s, all this didn't exist. We had to pave our path. So, you know, I called up, I don't know where I got the guts, but there came a point where I realized 3 or 6 months into the job that I was going nowhere. You know, many of you would go through this, right? You come in, you get hired into a great enterprise, and then you realize, what am I doing with my life? And I was in a hurry to excel. I was in my early 20s, and I decided to pick up the phone and talk to this gentleman sitting out of Delhi. Touch me not, far away. And you know, so one of the things I really believe is no fear. You know, I've never had fear of authority. And I think that I owe to a lot of my upbringing, because my father believed strongly that you should not fear authority, especially when your value system is being questioned. So I did pick up the phone, and I think I still regard him as my earliest mentor. It's now, it's about 30 years plus that I've been associated with that gentleman. And let me tell you, he came in with a clear agenda to say that, you know, this woman has actually helped me revive one of the accounts, and we need to help her succeed. I think so for me, that gentleman became my earliest mentor in my life, and though he was not my boss, we had no working relationship, I think it's about having no fear of authority, so that became my starting point. I owe a lot to him, and when I say I owe a lot to him is When he started a company, I did join with few other colleagues. And when we went there, and then I wanted to get into banking because I started my career very early on, always appreciated bankers. So that was my single-minded agenda, that I want to get into a bank and prove a point that I am not an outsourced person. I can be insourced. And I think getting into the bank was very important for me. So to a large extent, having good colleagues in the early years of my life who came into my rescue, some of my male bosses where I had no fear of authority, and having an open conversation, I think worked for me. So I strongly believe men as allies with no fear of authority does play a very critical part when your value system is being questioned. So I think that's how I would like to, summarize.
Excellent. So I think my takeaways from this response is that there's something to learn from everybody, and people around you can influence you all the time. There are mentors or so-called angels in life who would always be around, and we should know them and learn from them. And I think what I really liked is respect authority, but don't fear it, because I think it's
very well said, Jyoti. I think that's exactly what I believe in truly. There's nothing to fear.
Right, great. So since the topic today is carving your own path into leadership, I know you also mentioned that some of the choices you made were by chance and actually not. However, once you did make those choices or they came in front of you, how did you maneuver around the challenges that came around? And because that was managing challenges is intentional, or it has to be intentional. So how did you do that?
So, there are many instances, and I'm just trying to, sometimes situations push you onto certain challenges. So let me also tell you that I've had my share of failures. Okay, so, it's not like I've been a high-flying, successful, every year was fantastic or nothing like that happened. Okay, so it's great to sit here today and tell you that, my career was fabulous and everything. It's not true. So let me also tell all of you who are young and still pursuing their careers with great ambitions, careers are 35 years plus. In a 35-year career, please be prepared that five years are going to be bad for an exceptional performer. Okay, and it can be even more for a not so great exceptional performer. And therefore, first and foremost, get that ingrained in your mind. Because now when I sit back and think about the times when I was so unhappy when some colleague of mine did better than me. All of us go through it, right? Normal, hai na? Isn't it normal when a colleague does better than you? While he may be your best friend or she may be your best friend, you feel the pressure that how come that person did better than me? But let me tell you, as you grow senior, the pyramid is so narrow at the top. There will be a time when all of us are going to be just alone there. So there will be one person who will excel and move upwards. Be prepared for it today to have a satisfying lifetime. And nobody told me that, unfortunately. So I probably went through a lot of my own challenges, and I wasn't always in a male-dominated industry. Financial services is a male-dominated industry. Only in the branches you will find females. And because I was heading sales and, I was always in sales and, and I was with a brand like ICICI, for me, even labor of my baby happened in the bank. Okay, so I'm a case study in the bank. My bag broke and I went and had my baby. Now, why would I do something so stupid today if I have to think back? I did that because I was competing. Right? There were many men who were my peers. My daughter was coming in December. January, February, March is appraisal time. Right? Now that I couldn't change, right? That date can't be moved. That okay, man, next quarter kar dega. It doesn't work like that, right? It was coming now. So I remember when I came to know I was pregnant with my second child, my first reaction was, oh God, why couldn't it come in April? Okay? But so I thought I should go and talk. That is the level of competitiveness, okay, that's the kind of competition we all start believing in, to just be successful, to be outside of what the others are. And my doc told me, be careful. So if you ask me, the biggest challenge was to take, when he said be careful, in the 7th month, I was traveling the length and breadth because I was head of zone west. How can I not travel? लड़के लोग बोलेंगे, Shanta is not traveling, उसको privilege मिल गया, इसको ये मिल गया, उसके में my appraisal gets stuck. Okay? I have my daughter in December, the bag breaks in the office. I go alone to get admitted in hospital, and I have my baby. So my 3 months starts after my baby is born. Now February is the time when my appraisal happens in the office. And now I'm stressing. While I should be focusing on my daughter, I'm stressing on the fact that mere appraisal mein my boss is going to kill me. You know, I'm not in sight and what will happen to my appraisal. So if you ask me, my single biggest appraisal was the fact that I was so competitive. Because ambition overtakes competition. Okay, and I seriously think each one of us should know where to draw the line. Nobody tells us where to draw the line. So that was my single biggest challenge. And I didn't let go, right? I came back in April and you know, like everybody got promoted. I also got promoted because I superseded my performance. Obviously, my daughter doesn't feel the same. But I did supersede my performance. I got promoted. Now I've come into office and my single biggest challenge was I was now a mother of 2 kids and you know I had a career. I was in a highly ambitious career where all my peers were men who were in and around my age group, and all of us were now getting ready for the second level of promotion. You know how it is, right? Ek promotion ho gaya, to that till you get it, you like crazily running after it, and then you say it's okay. So I think it came to the second leg, and that was the time where I actually felt I was stressed. That was the only time in my life where I felt I was stressing out because I was working round the clock. It was 24 hours just to prove, because children keep you awake and you know, things like that. And then that's the time that became my second challenge, and I decided to take a step back and say that it's okay if my career takes a back seat for 1 year. It's okay. And I did have a conversation with the MD of the bank to say that, you know, listen, I want to go slow for 1 year. Give me a project which will set me back a little bit, where I get flexibility. But you know, ambitious people never know what is relaxation. You go back and you make that also a big business. You overwork yourself and then you don't get promoted the next year and your peer has gone ahead. I think those challenges, the day you start saying life is a 35-year journey, 5 years are going to be here and there, it's okay, it's a pyramid. Some of us will reach the top, some of us will drop off. I think please, every one of you, learn that early for your own happiness, because when you look back and say, really, did I lose out on anything? Not really, actually, I gained only. That 1 year here and there didn't kill me in my whole career. So, seriously, challenges, why I'm giving this, you know, impromptu is because those are things still lingering in my mind. Could I have changed it differently? Work challenges, let me be honest with you, if you have committed yourself to work, you better give your 150%. Then there is no gender here. It is that if I committed, because you know this thing about I'm becoming a mother so I need to take it slow, I'm becoming a daughter, you know, I have to take care. I think that's when your bosses play a very critical role, doesn't matter man or woman, whoever the gender is. I think having free-flowing dialogues, being honest with each other and telling them I need support. I have not seen an opportunity in my life where I've sought support and I haven't got it. You know, for half of the time we don't talk about it and we expect support. You know, so my sincere thing to you is don't fear authority. Please be communicative on your own challenges, good, bad, ugly. It's nice to share because you will get, challenges have just begun in a career. It's a long journey, very long journey. It's very lonely when you go to the top. Today you can still go and, you know, my biggest challenge as I grew senior, I was in a highly male-dominated environment. There were times when I wanted to do female conversations. You know, today when you're young, you're an individual performer, you can drag a female to, you know, a coffee or something and share your innermost problems. When you go senior, it gets even tougher. So I would put that as some of my few challenges on leadership. I hope it answers your question.
No, it does. And
Yeah.
as one of my mentors also told me that career is a marathon, not a sprint, and we should run it at a certain pace and not fatigue ourselves out. And I think you know, you mentioned about challenges which every woman would face, but also I think diversity, when we talk about race or religion, I think any so-called group which is underrepresented may face in different ways or shape and manner, and mentors play a critical role in helping us through it. And that's where I'm getting into my next question around the people around us, whether it's whether in a gender context it's the male colleagues, or in a other set of diversity, it could be the larger represented group. What are some of your tips for them in terms of how can they actively and very from the forefront play a allyship role, and
the men
show men in a
or
in a
any
gender,
other gender,
but
okay.
in another context, the others. How can we really be there,
be
show our
inclusive.
allyship in a very prominent manner?
Okay. So, just to put some context around this is, I think, fortunately in our country, I still don't see demarcation on caste, religion. We don't have that kind of racism. I think in corporates, I don't see that, at least in our country. And having been a long corporate executive, I haven't experienced anything which is on caste creed. I'm sure all of you know that we don't say he's Brahmin, he's Harijan, or, we don't operate like that. I think it's a very international concept too, that there is biases on, there is racism across the world. And because I am a constant traveler, I do experience it off and on in different forms. But in India, fortunately, I think it's more about the gender thing that's been a strong area of concern for us. Have I faced it from a gender disparity perspective? Not really. I've not faced anything from a gender disparity perspective in any of my professional endeavors. So if I have to look at all of you today, I think this gender word is it works in both ways. I know men who have not succeeded in their careers, and women have done extremely well in the same profession. I have seen people who are handicapped also excel as special people at work. I run a school in Nalasopara, which is for specially abled children, and I also work with transgenders. When I compare the specially abled children, and I run a cafe for transgenders, I also place transgenders in workplaces. The disparity and the discrimination that they face, I think women and men at work don't face at all. Okay, so my personal thing is, I think we make gender very big in our lives. So if we work cohesively and look at this bunch of people, we are far more privileged than we can ever be in a country. I just think we need to appreciate that both of us are different. Now when I look at men, okay, let me look at the gender comparison. Men collaborate very well, okay. Men network beautifully. So you will find men, especially when you're doing a startup or whatever, men attract men. Okay, they'll find those friends who they grew up with, college friends, school friends, whatever it is. And they also have that ability to stand tall and tell the other guy, you're not up to the mark. Okay, when I look at women, okay, women don't help other women. Okay, I mean, being a woman, I'm saying something as strong as this, please take it with a bag of salt. Okay, women don't help women. Okay, so I think one big thing as men as allies is we can learn from them. How can you use your networks to help when another woman is in need? Okay, it's not a trait we have. The second thing that we have, which is very good as a trait, is empathy and nurturance. And I think those qualities of a woman with a male, with networking and collaboration and ability to influence horizontally and vertically to get a common objective, I think men can play beautiful roles for helping women. So when you're in a difficult situation, I mean, I've had my line managers, because I moved from line, actually I did business for 25 years. And I moved to HR because my boss, who was the MD of the company, MD of the bank, felt that he needed somebody who would be aggressive enough, who would speak their language to get the work done. We were in pre-IPO, and we were getting listed, our listing got delayed, and therefore he wanted somebody who could manage the teams. And when the men and me worked together, I think we were a winning combination. because they were truly my allies on areas which they could do well. And as women, the things that so when there is a difficult situation, let me give you an example. As a line manager, you want to part ways with a bad employee. Women will bring the emotional piece into it to manage it, but there's a level of assertiveness that you will have to bring in at that point of time in a collaborative network. So you might want to tell the guy, chal yaar ek smoke karke aate. A woman won't be able to do that in a tough situation. So I think somewhere men with these qualities do play a very important role to be very good allies if we want a winning outcome. And I want you all to be cognizant of the fact that we all come to work for an outcome. Okay, we don't come here to work to make friends here. I mean, friends, all of you have enough friends, no? You have enough people who are friends. The problem is when you make a workplace a friendship place, you can't get the best out of your people. It is outcome and purpose that we come for, and we get paid for that outcome and purpose. We make this a family for 10 hours of the day, or 12 hours of the day, or sometimes 24 hours of the day, but it is a professional enterprise. You're answerable to your shareholders, you're answerable to your community, you're answerable to your customers, and then employees, of course. So if you start thinking with organization above self, you will realize that men have to be your allies for a common purpose and objective. And men also have to understand it holds true for the women at work. It's all about inclusion, right? That the women are as good when you are in crisis, they are required to play that role. I think that realization is so critical at the nape of your neck. Otherwise, you can't get outcomes and be a winning team. And my biggest learning happened in my last stint. The previous years, the first 25 years of my career, I don't think I even realized it. Because the brand was so big in my earlier 25 years of my career. I worked with one of the best brands of this country, both international and domestic banks. I don't think the brand didn't help me. It was only when I went to a startup bank and we wanted to go to IPO that I realized how important these partnerships are for desired outcome. So I owe a lot to my last stint as a full-time resource.
Perfect. So an outcome-driven approach. I think we all have to just understand the value that we bring to the table as professionals and focus on that when we are at work, and then see what each one of us create value. I think that's what matters at the end. Again, going back to the topic of carving your path, what has been the single most driver when you made choices of either change in companies or change in professions or change in roles, and bringing the IND flavor to it? Do you think women are not as good as men in making those choices or reaching out for opportunities?
So one biggest problem with women is we don't ask. Get into the habit of asking. I don't think we do a good job there. When you ask, it works. So I'll tell you, the choices you make are based on personal values. I give a lot of importance to my personal values and the professional values of the company. If they don't match, I am not going to continue in that company. I'm pretty clear on that one. So for me, my personal values, I have some value system. And when I say value system, I have some value system which is ingrained with me since birth. Okay, like I will not compromise. If I am serving well in the company, I need to be meritoriously recognized. Okay, I don't want to be treated exclusively, but I want to be meritoriously recognized for what outcome I've done. So there is competition, right, amongst all of you. There is some competition. You may call it healthy. In HR parlance, we call it healthy. But honestly, competition is not necessarily always healthy. So there are some people who play dirty games with you, right, at work. They camouflage data. They present information which is incorrect because they're better communicators than you are. They're better networkers. And they come up with things. But if you're meritorious and your personal values say that I am meritorious, I have performed, why should I not talk about it at that point of time? By sitting down and letting somebody else, talk about you. And I think women fail in that space. very, very badly. And I seriously urge the women that if you believe that you've done a good work and you are great at what you've done and your outcome, and you may not be the best communicator in the room, please present the facts. There is no harm. People understand. People, especially someone like Nitin who's sitting on call, or people who are leading from the front. You have so many leaders, not at that level, maybe at the next level, who also have gone through this journey. They understand when somebody is telling a lie or is camouflaging facts. By stopping yourself or not communicating enough is probably disservice to the organization. Because I repeatedly tell you that organization is above everybody else. It's above self. If you're upset because somebody else walked away with the accolades and you didn't even voice it, it's your loss. An organization is not expected to know what they are interested in outcome, because they have to give shareholder return and they have to give customer satisfaction. I think let's not forget that. And there is this whole ESG, CSR, community preferences, and then there is of course employee. Okay, so I just feel that we need to carve our path on what we truly believe is why we come to work and what is the outcome I'm expecting personally and professionally. I truly believe in that. And it's a realization. I even today, if I've come here, is there an outcome that I'm going to get out of this? I don't know. 10 of you might say it was a waste of time. 20 might say, the whole team might say it was a waste of time. But where I'm sitting, I've come with a desired outcome. Now, if you didn't pick that outcome up because of preconceived notions about the speaker, it's the professional mismatch of the way we both think, right? It's like that. It's all about outcome. So I would put outcome for carving the path. So if a company did not give me a place to be who I am, I have left that organization. I cannot change an organization to be comfortable with me. My company is like this. When you go to Glassdoor and Indeed and all of them, however great the company is, they talk negative things about the organization. I mean, if you can't fit into the culture because there is a personal value mismatch, you need to align yourself. But if your values are totally compromised, then you might as well, there are enough opportunities outside. You can't sit inside and keep saying, ये company में ये ठीक नहीं होता है, वो ठीक नहीं होता है, ये नहीं अच्छा है, वो नहीं अच्छा है, and not work at shareholder return and customer satisfaction, or even community. So I think it's all about outcome and wherever. So have I left organizations because of personal value mismatch? The answer is a clear yes.
My question was also around how have you made those role choices, because those have what have led to your learning and again been a contributor to your success. So those role relevant choices were done with keeping what in mind?
So I also have a family.
Right.
Okay, and all parents go through this thing about whatever hardships I have gone through, I don't want my children to go through, right? We all have that standard tune. Okay, I want to send my children to good schools, I want to give them. So there is also an aspiration which is very personal, and there is a match to aspiration. So I think that played a critical role on some of the choices that I made. But when I turned 40, I think one of the biggest choices I made was I had never worked outside of Bombay. And I thought I had already turned 40 because at that time people said 40 saal ka ho gaya to naukri nahi milta hai, and all of that. Now they say 50 pe naukri nahi milta hai. I see even 70-year-olds working even today. So I don't know when naukri nahi milta hai, but you keep having a job. So people said, by 40 if you don't get your act together, you'll not get an opportunity. So one option was to talk to my existing employer, which was ICICI, who would have moved me to any place that I wanted. They also had an international offices, but I wanted to work within India in another office. So, but I knew ICICI was a Bombay-based entity. Why would I move out of head office and go and work for a branch office? All of you understand all that, right? I mean, I don't have to explain. When I'm sitting as a joint general manager, why would I go there? So I thought, let me change my profession, and I went to Delhi and joined American Express. I joined the country executive team. So at 40, I made that move consciously. What did that do? They gave me 2 or 3 of my aspirational stuff. I wanted to get into the executive team of a bank, and so it took care of that. I was 40, it paid me more, and it also gave me an opportunity to get out of my comfort zone of Bombay, where I knew everybody and everything. But then, you know, there was this whole startup thing that was happening, right? There was this whole euphoria ki startup, and all youngsters, 30-year-olds were coming into startups and all of that. So I think I got edgy about getting into a startup. So I came with that edginess to come into a startup. And that was a choice I made, okay, very clear choice, because I took a 72% hit in my salary, okay, at a time when my professional needs were much higher and my personal needs were even higher. My children were going to international schools. My husband and I had both planned our, you know, financial process and everything, but I took the call because I feel it's one life, you know, and in this life I want to do everything that I can and quickly, because, you know, age will catch up, and the other aspect is also health has to catch up, right? There may be other issues. So, and my mental accumulation of whatever experience I have, and without dementia, I need to take care of all that, right? So age is also a very important factor, and therefore I went and joined a startup bank, 72% hit in salary. It was the toughest period of my life, okay? And let me, you know, I think there were many choices on a personal level that I had to make. So I also consciously moved my children to boarding school, because this was a career that I really wanted, because I wanted to retire at 50. And if you want to retire at 50, you have to be like an entrepreneur. You have to take bigger risks in life and expect the return, because outcomes were clear. Nothing has happened by chance for me. I am being very clear that choices of carving a path to say I want to retire at 50 was something that I was building my hope on. But you know, you can't be always perfect, yeah. So I had a couple of bad years in that stint. Some really bad years. I thought my life had stopped when I went through a bad career for about a year, not realizing that organization has bigger demands, and maybe I was not good enough to run that business, yeah. It's possible that they needed a new change of management or a better person than me, and sometimes you just need to recognize that shareholder return is bigger than my salary today, right? I am a pre-IPO company, and you know, there are bigger demands, and there's a bigger ask from the world outside. There is a investor community who's asking you questions, and maybe I have my shortcomings to run that business. Maybe I have plateaued, and I think sometimes it's better to question your own self and say, where do I fit in best? So I did have a bad year in my early, we were an unlisted company, and I had a bad year. And I had a fantastic year after that, because I wasn't born to do this business, right? I was born as an individual who made choices and took some career options. You know, there are people who will say, "Arey, mere ko udhar move kar diya, idhar move kar diya," and they get upset. You know, there's nothing to be upset, because all those experiences are cumulative experiences for the tomorrow. Today, when I sit on multiple boards and I'm able to give a perspective across so many aspects, I think it's a kick for me. That, you know, had I not gone through these multiple experiences in life, I wouldn't have probably been able to provide perspectives. So I think it's important for each one of us to realize that opportunities come your way at a corporate. Corporate is answerable to shareholder, and if that opportunity is conducive for your career path, you stick around there and take that opportunity. Don't just try to escape from the side route that I have a better opportunity elsewhere. It won't help you, because organizations, you know, even your boss, I mean, you know, I've been a boss for, I don't know, Adam's years. They are under pressures all the time. Being a boss is not easy. It's a tough life for bosses, yeah. So you carve your path situations, you carve your path because of your own ambition, and I'm happy. I have no complaints about how my career went.
Excellent. So I think what I take away is getting out of your comfort zone, having the learning agility, making brave choices, and I think keeping the outcome driven approach both for self and the organization again at the forefront. So thank you about that.
You summarized beautifully, Jyoti. I think hats off. You're a good listener.
Thank you. Okay, so between EQ and IQ on the path to leadership, what would you give higher weightage?
No, I won't say higher weightage. I think both are equally important and complementing. And why I'll say that is all my colleagues all my life have been IIT-IIMs. Okay, if you know, all banking fraternity at the senior most level are all men, and all IIT-IIMs mostly. And notwithstanding the fact that they come from Columbus or one of those Lady Sri Ram types of backgrounds. So I think I've been fortunate to have very good IQ colleagues all my life, men or women both, and so it's been a balance. But I think the extreme of being high on IQ and being zero on EQ, I think that's the most dangerous person. And I've been fortunate or unfortunate to have had enough and more colleagues of that type too. Because IQ gets you to a level, beyond that level you can't grow. You need EQ. EQ cannot be compromised. IQ can still be compromised because you may not be the most intelligent person. I've had smarter people than me in my team, and that's a fact. I've had very intelligent youngsters who today run their own fintech companies, successful, and are unicorns. And I'm very proud that we hired that kind of people. Okay, and they were my team people, and they've done so well in their lives because they were high on EQ, but definitely high on IQ, but definitely high on EQ too. Because if you want to be really a self-starter, self-motivated, EQ does matter. EQ matters more than just IQ. IQ can be bought, EQ cannot be bought. You can always have a smarter guy in your team or a smarter girl in your team. So it is, I would give EQ a higher
Can one
weightage.
build EQ if they're not born with it?
So I'll tell you what its realization. You know that it's a you know that so I sit on a board of a company where the CEO, the group CEO believes he has no EQ. He's an IIT IM guy. He strongly believes he has no EQ. And I think this word EQ is about, you know, when you see him in a situation, and I've constantly had this discussion with him, to tell him, boss, you think you don't have EQ. There's no harm when you're in a conversation to use your data for communicating something to somebody. That doesn't mean that you're low on EQ. You're just smarter because you're using numbers to get to your outcome orientation, right? But somewhere that fellow continuously believes that EQ is not there. I think the first thing that you need to know is if you even believe you don't have the EQ, because sometimes you're just insensitive to your surroundings. Your family will tell you, yeah, that you're insensitive. I think your first protocol is family. They'll tell you that you were so insensitive, you were so harsh, or whatever it is. So it gives you a little bit of validation. Please don't ignore them because they will believe in you. But more importantly, can it be cultivated? It's tough. But what can be cultivated is if you're open to constructive feedback, it will work. And I have seen some of my colleagues who genuinely believed they were low on EQ and they couldn't understand or gauge, especially when we were doing a posh case. You know, because I was part of the gender committee and I was the chair of my last bank. So when you're discussing a posh committee case, I think EQ plays a very important role. Because you need to always not make the male the victim and the female the accused, right? It's about, I mean, the female the victim and the male the accused. I think you need to get that balance, and those kind of committees, etc., that plays a very, very important role. So we consciously, as part of our diversity, equity, inclusion strategy, gotten people from who we believed were low on EQ. And how do you come to these conclusions? We used Hogan. We used Harrison. We also created our own 360-degree with a company because based on our needs and our expectations, we designed a few programs, and we also did leadership interventions to understand based on situations. So, you know, before we arrived that somebody had low EQ.
Right, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are we running short of time?
How are we doing on time?
How are we doing on time?
3:56.
No, it's 3:56.
4:30.
4:30, okay. I thought you said 4 o'clock,
Yeah.
which is 4 minutes.
No, so we have last few questions, and we'll also open it up for questions from the audience. Again, going back to the theme of carving your path to leadership, there are very typical leader-like qualities which we know that one needs to be networking, a good orator,
Correct.
Empathetic, kind of be out there, be a part of the crowd, connect, etc. But everything doesn't come to everybody naturally.
Yeah.
So going back to the same thing of how should we continue to build some of those missing links and try and continuously groom the leader within us.
So, I just have a deja vu of my past life, and we went through all these challenges. As a practitioner, you go through all of this. All of us are not great communicators, etc. But we had a lot of committees in the bank, and we made sure to pull people out who had those reservations. And honestly, that was an acquired trait that I got from ICICI.
Like the naughtiest boy, the leader of the
yeah,
class, the naughtiest student, the leader.
Because I'll tell you one of the things about communication. Listen guys, it's so important to communicate if you're a leader. You have to connect with your audience, whoever the audience may be, because if you're not good at that, it's a challenge. Communication, I think, plays a very important role, and communication with authenticity. Ultimately when somebody is telling a lie, you can make out, right? वो दिखता है. Opposite person is not an idiot, right? The person can know how to communicate. Just because you're sitting in a senior level doesn't mean you communicate well. So I've had my own share of experiences, and I'd like to share one particular one before we get to the real specifics. We were doing in one of my past organizations, we were doing a cost cutting exercise, and it was really funny because we had level wise communication, right? Because it was 1.5 lakh people, so you have to do level wise. So I was a joint general manager. Now as a joint general manager, what happens is you sit in the deputy general manager also, and you sit in the general manager and senior general manager forum too. You sit in both. And there's a communication happening where they are talking about cost cutting, and one of the things that they did was they removed tissue paper and toilet paper, whatever, papers from the toilets were removed. And they are going on and on about how important it is to cut costs. And they're communicating with all of us. And I'm sitting there, we were just 2 women in that entire place. And now it had gone above my head. I mean, there are 50 things you can do to cut costs, right? I can tell you how people are misusing the organization's assets. You're cutting tissue paper to tell us how much you're going to save. So, I'm still known for that comment and that question. So I got up and I said, do you see that I am designed differently from you? I mean, you see me, right? I'm a woman. I have certain problems as a woman, right? All of you know women have, we have monthly issues. We have, by removing tissue paper from the ladies' toilet, what is the kind of saving you're going to have? And it was such a career limiting statement, right, to make that. And I stood up and asked this question. Now why? Because I don't have fear of authority, and my value system says कि boss ये क्या है? तुम tissue paper निकालने वाले हो bathroom से? You remove it for the men, don't leave it, leave it for the women. So we are only 2 women in that group, and the other woman is, of course, she's a back-end job person. I'm more the front-end person, and I stood up and asked this question. And everybody who was on the panel was giving me some gyan, and I said, I'm not buying it, guys. I am not buying it. Please. So the tissue paper came in back. And there were messages from all the men saying, well done, well done, well done. The men also like ना कि कोई दूसरे ने कर दिया तो मेरा तो मैं तो बच गया. So उसने अपने तरफ से well done, well done, well done. In fact, I went to meet one of them, has become a very senior MD of an insurance company, and I was taking one of my board founders, and he said we only remember her for that one sentence that she shouted to everybody. The next round was, we are now meeting, now the CEO of the bank, the MD of the group is coming to give us the same communication. Unfortunately, I was in both the groups. So one of the guys who was my communicator told me, अभी जो question तूने उधर पूछा ना हम लोगों को, अभी तू पूछ. I said, listen, there I was the flunk. Now you are the flunk. तुम्हारा काम है ये question पूछने का, right? It's all about when you take communication and you take the challenge that I will communicate and I'll take the feedback from my employees, then please stand tall for continuously communicating. So I think for me, one big thing is authentic communication. Doesn't matter whether you're good in English, Marathi, Gujarati, that's not important. It's about how authentic are you when you're communicating, so people around you know. So for me, it's not about the quality of communication, it's about authenticity. Second thing that I genuinely believe, which is a very big quality, guys, is ability to influence horizontally. Lateral influence is appraisal. If I'm the boss, however, whatever I say is gospel truth, because usko pata hai end of the year I am going to appraise him. The real trick is lateral. When you horizontally influence a person, then your desired outcome is far higher. I would put a lot of importance to horizontal leadership more than just vertical leadership. The third thing is nurturing talent at workplace. You know, don't compete with your subordinates because, you know, it comes back to haunt you. It may not haunt you today, it will haunt you. Let me tell you, 30 years from today, you know, sometimes I go on LinkedIn and there are some horrible people who did horrible things to their team members. They write about how great they have now become philosophical and all, you know. So I'm 57. So in my age group now, many people are philosophical. Okay, they write about their journeys and how fantastic they've been and blah, blah, blah. And you should see one employee who will write there, his ex-team member, you were not the best boss. You know, in public domain, he will write. So, please remember when you are in a stage of philosophy and when you want to become the Swami, that is the time when the truth about you comes. So, it's always good not to compete with your subordinates, give space to your people, nurture talent at workplace, because when they grow, you grow. And when you grow, so when we started a startup bank, the first 100 people came and joined us on a phone call. Because people who are good bosses also get good followers. Okay, so please remember, you don't know when you need your team members because sometimes your team members do better than you. Okay, आज के तारीख में don't look at the, today is not your time to see. 30 years from today, your teams will be doing better than you do. And you might need them when you need a job, etc. So be nice to people in general. It will help for desired outcome.
Not being philosophical and definitely not on LinkedIn.
Not on LinkedIn. I mean, people write such horrible things about those people, yeah. And he feels so embarrassed about, Bhaga must be wasting all his time deleting comments, yeah. I would be so uncomfortable if somebody did that to me.
Very daring, I must say.
Because they don't need him anymore, na? Him or her. It's not only him, sorry, it's or could be her also.
All right, interesting. So, you know, as you're on your path to leadership or anyone is, there tends to be a sense of entitlement or a sense of authority. How do you continue to remain humble and
big challenge,
humility?
Big challenge. Let me tell you, kissa kursi ka. The day you lose your kursi na, you know who you are. Okay, this kissa kursi ka is scary, guys. And let me tell you, all of us go through it. The power of the chair starts defining you. I think for me, the startup bank was my first realization. So I, you know, after having worked with some fantastic brands like ANZ Grindlays, ICICI, American Express, I went and joined Ratnakar Bank. Does it ring any word also, Ratnakar Bank for the startup bank? And I used to tell my boss, इससे अच्छा तो मैं शांता and Sons लिख के जाऊँ अपने card में. Because the moment you used to say Ratnakar Bank, people used to not even want us to come in. Because they thought it was some cooperative, district cooperative bank, you know. And so, you know, sometimes that Schindler is a big brand. And your definition that I'm an employee of Schindler, you don't today have to tell what Schindler is. When you work for a bank called Ratnakar Bank, no, you have to tell what Ratnakar Bank is. It's like almost saying, I'm Shanta, I have 2 daughters, I have 1 husband. It's like that. It's almost like I'm introducing myself all over again. I must tell you the most hilarious experiences of not having a brand backing you. Don't underestimate the power of the organization in your lives. Your kissa kursi kana, that power is coming from Schindler. It's not coming for who you are. Therefore, please be aware that do not put self above organization. Your organization defines you. You are who you are. Today when you go to a gathering, you know, मेरा बेटा Schindler में काम करता है. Nobody has to be told, Schindler क्या है? Nobody has to be told, right? वो आप lift बनाते हो ना, lift escalator में जाते हो. You know, it's so simple. Go and join a company which has no brand. 0 brand. And so we used to hire people. Okay, and it was hilarious that I hired a place in Delhi to hire people for banking. We sat for 7 days. 3 people came, walk-in interviews. 3 people. Because the brand was not selling. It was the person who had to sell. It was all personal. That's the day we realized, अपना जो पुराने followers है उनको ही लेके आते हैं because 7 दिन में कोई नहीं आया. Okay? So the brand plays a very important role on your kursi. Your kursi gets defined by the brand, so don't make yourself bigger than the brand. Okay, if you're not Schindler's employee, you're nobody at the end of it, you know, you're not the Prime Minister of this country also. So when I worked for Ratnakar Bank, I think I realized what it is not to have a brand to back you up. So for me, some amount of that learning came when I went to an unknown brand. Then we became RBL Bank, we got listed, we got 72 times oversubscribed, we all became celebrities because we were all startup, na, who became celebrities. So when we became celebrities, we thought that was ours now. We were the co-management, we made all the difference, we became the powerhouse. And only when I decided to leave full-time work is when I realized that your power is over. And it takes a lot of effort because it's like an alcoholic withdrawal problem. Okay, when you give up smoking or you give up drinking, it takes you some time, no, to you start shivering and people are not interested. And if one of your reportees will say, "Nahi, madam, time nahi, abhi milne ke liye boss bula raha hai." You suddenly realize you're nobody. In one day you're nobody. So it is very important that when you are sitting in the chair, just be good human beings first. Remember your organization is bigger than you, and then the chair really doesn't define you. Then it is your personal strength, and honestly last 2 years, because I've left full-time work after 35 years, just 2 years ago, I've been working on my personal strength to identify what really makes me happy about getting up in the morning. So when I started working, you know, the gender diversity, I've been a huge propagator of DEI. We were 0.8% when we started RBL. And my turning point of getting women into the fraternity was, we had a offsite where we were calling all our customers in 2011 in Kolhapur, because our bank comes from Kolhapur. And we had hired this huge place in Kolhapur, a garden. Okay, and that garden there were 1,000 men who came, okay, because in that particular place, wine and non-veg is a big thing in Kolhapur. When I mean serving of alcohol. So women don't come, and it was all a males gathering, and most of them were in their dhotis and you know that kind of a profile. And we were just 3 women in that garden there, of which 2 of the women were, you know, much junior in the hierarchy, had never come to a setup like that, and those 2 women left at about 8:30. And this was to go on till late at night. And that is the day I realized I was the sole woman, because I was part of the management committee, the only woman in the management committee, and I had no choice but to hang around there. I was heading business, branch banking of all the things. So all my customers were also there, and I was stuck there. And that's the day I decided to move that needle, that I am now a business head. I was not in HR, but as a business head, I took this upon myself. So line managers have to play a very important role. It's not an HR function. It's a line manager's function to say, I need these many women. And honestly, when I left the bank 12 years later, we were 26% women. Wow. Okay, and for me, it's a very, but you know, for me, the criteria after we touched the percentage was to have senior level how much, second level how much, N-2. So we had gone into a lot more detailing on the women percentages, but notwithstanding the fact that the men were equally important. Yeah, I mean, we played that game throughout my career because it's all about inclusion. It's not about just being diverse in population. Yeah, so I think all of these do matter in the way you want to design. I'm sure Schindler is on the path. And you know, you've also hired such able women into your fraternity, and you have very able men already in the fraternity. It will be a great journey when you move the needle, you become partners in progress, and the organization is bigger than you. It's a winning solution. Yeah. I don't see why anybody should. It's such a simple formula. I don't know, it's not complicated. It's not complicated.
Excellent. And on the chair, be a human being first, right? I think that is,
it's very important, because
very important. Right.
That's the only definition.
Okay. Disha is showing me the clock.
Yes,
so maybe I will pause and take some questions if there are any from the audience and or on the call, and then maybe my concluding question.
Please ask. Asking is very important.
Okay, so while people in the room are thinking, we have a couple of questions on the Teams call. So you did mention.
There is one here also.
Who's speaking?
That's Chinmay, she's part
Okay,
of the team.
Chinmay, sorry, I can't see you.
Chinmay, we do have a question from
Okay.
the audience
Yes.
here. So should we take that first?
Yeah, we can
Okay,
take the audience
go
question
ahead.
first.
Well, I see this as a privilege to get to ask the first question.
Yeah.
Hi, ma'am. It was a pleasure listening to you, and I did not like that timer tick that only 5 minutes are left. I wanted you to go on. Anyways, ma'am, you were talking about this on the final part about realizing that once you have left the position, you realize that the position was more important than you were. Ma'am, this realization, I believe after listening to you, must have not come to you after leaving. You must have experienced this or had some sort of an epiphany regarding that I have to be bigger than this chair. So would you just confirm me by saying that, yes, I did realize that and I started working towards it? Or if not, then how to realize it today for me?
So
Too early, first.
Too early.
No, I think that's the right
anytime.
track. Let's
it
get there
depends
fast.
on your purpose. I think purpose changes. All of us will see at every stage of our life, our purpose changes. Why are we here? What is it? See, because let me tell you, when you're in the corporate ladder, okay, you have certain goal marks that I want to be a CXO, I want to be a CEO, everybody has some setup. Once you reach that, you're still not satisfied. So there is a larger purpose that draws you. Okay, and I don't want to sound like a philosophical person, but I think there are some innate things that you like about your life. So let me tell you that 2 years ago, before I took the call to step out of full-time work, I started thinking about it 2 years before. Also remember, while I started my career as a telemarketing executive, I have also seen a huge growth in my income. Okay, and when I saw a huge growth in my income, I also started acquiring a lot of tastes. You have expenditure, right? Income and expenditure are always there, yes. Okay? So what happens is the first realization when you want to step out to do your own or you want to be on your own, to see your self-worth, is to validate your financial health. Let me tell you, if your financial health is not healthy, you can't pursue any purpose blindly because you are also used to some good things of life. So I did do a lot of my financial management. I also got myself certified as an NISM certified person, which was not required. Okay, because I have a portfolio management service, etc. But I still went about doing that because I consciously wanted to say that I want to get into the social sector. For that, I need 10% of my annual earnings, assuming I don't have a fixed job. Our salary structures are also reached very good levels, right? And one fine morning, you're not going to make that money. But you want to be in the social sector. Social sector is a guzzler of funds, okay? So you're going to get into the social sector. So I need 10% of my annual income to go into the social sector. That means I need to make this much of income, right? For that, my financial health, whether it's my investments, whether it's my connects who will give me the money to focus on the social sector, all of that became, my purpose became social sector. So what I'm saying is, for me it took 2 years to make that decision. It also came with the thing that, I am ready now to give up the chair, okay, mentally. But honestly, I think that was the toughest withdrawal for me. It took me the first 30 days of me stepping out after 35 years of full-time work, having led, at least for 20 years I've been a very senior person. I think it took me a lot of time to appreciate the fact that today you can't walk into an office like you did in the past and say, boss, I need funds for my social venture. So what really worked for me is my networks and relationships. So I think what you really need to do, if your purpose is defined, which will take time, and purpose is a moving goal. Okay, so don't think that today I can define a purpose which is going to be there at that, because I have taken care of a lot of my personal commitments, financial positioning, and my purpose. Okay, so I also started investing in the first 90 days of stepping out of full-time work into my networks, because my purpose was drawing me to be in touch with networks. So I invested my time with my networks, rebuilt all those networks, caught up for coffees and teas. And today if I'm able to fund, so when I started my trans cafe, it was a gender thing. First of all, it's a separate gender. They are not an easy bunch of people, right? They are different, okay? And I have to appreciate their differences. But money is very important. So I think those networks which I built in the first 90 days helped me to launch my first trans cafe in October of 2022. I left full-time work in May 2022, actually June 1st, May 31st. And by October, I was ready to. So have a purpose, but have a plan for the purpose. Don't randomly like one fine morning say, "Abhi to bas ho gaya hai, mere ko nahi karne ka kaam." इससे नहीं होता है, you know. It's a plan. It's a project plan.
I really appreciate the answer and sending you all my good wishes for the work that you're doing.
Oh yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, there are many good well-wishers. Yeah, so I'm happy. God's been very kind. 2 years, fabulous. No complaints.
Thank you. Next question.
What's your name?
I'm Ananya.
And what do you do, Ananya? Yeah.
I have joined in Schindler 3 months back. So I handle area management over here. So I'm in M1 branch, Mumbai branch,
Oh, nice.
and as an area manager of existing installations.
Oh, nice, nice, Ananya. Nice talking to you. Thanks for asking the first question.
Chinmay, do we have any other
Yes,
questions in the
yes.
room?
In fact, our MD and CEO has shared a few words with you. His name is Nitin Chalke. I'll read it out to you, and there's also a question at the end. He says, Shanta, thank you for sharing your perspective with our team. You talked about encouraging women to take charge of their career aspirations, make your choices, have no fear of authority, speak up, reach out, lean in, network, etc., which aligns with what we encourage at Schindler. Are there some best practices you can share with companies, which companies have followed, to encourage such culture of candor and fearless career conversations from both sides? Or what can we do to create such a culture at Schindler even further?
Okay, so
So
I'm
actually,
taking the answer.
Shanta, Nitin wanted to also share a few words in the beginning, but then we had only listen in setup.
Oh, okay.
But we'll
Okay.
do better next time. But he's put a question, so you're.
Yeah, so I'll tell you one of the very good practices that ICICI followed, and I think it was one of the better practices which I emulated totally. It was a copy paste. Is something that they ran which was called I Voice. So, you know, people who were authentic, who spoke and were able to answer questions, we identified those people and traveled them across the country for smaller groups of open conversations with HR being observers. And let me tell you, that works beautifully with no fear. So it's not about, you know, mera leave attendance ka kya policy hai. It's not about that. It's about saying that, you know, in this organization, if I put in these many years of work, how am I recognized? How are women treated equally in the company? What are those women practices which have worked well for the company? You know, things like that. And there were males who used to answer this as well. It was not a woman thing. Okay, so I think having small open group conversations in a smaller format across the country with openness to express plays beautifully in all organizations. We adopted that in RBL. It worked beautifully for us. And there were moments of emotions of people's lives that changed because of us. I think it's also a very good learning for someone like Nitin and the HR team. If you guys can work together. I ran this for my MD. Both of us traveled the length and breadth of this country to reimagine the vision, mission, values of our company. So we actually reworked our entire value system, rework we did based on interactions with our employees. And we found our employees connect with us at the heart level. It was no more about the IQ. My MD himself was from IIM, but it was no more about IQ. It was all about EQ and knowing your employee. It was a great connect. Please do this. It works beautifully. And it's not about men or women. It's about what do they really believe your organization is. That was a great practice that we did. The second great practice that we did was we put shareholder return as our #1 focus. I think because we were an outcome oriented organization and we had clear outcomes, But the third thing that we did was we did something called the CEO Awards. And the awards was based on values only. So we ran our values, which was PREET, which was professionalism, respect, entrepreneurial excellence and teamwork. I'll never forget that till death do me apart. I created it, so I'm very well associated with it, because we talk about values in the company, but we don't put action around the words. So we ran our CEO Awards totally around values. We had an external facilitator who came in whenever we were in a crossroad. We had a talent management committee which evaluated the values, and we made this, and this became the CEO's statement of fact that I believe that this is shareholder return, I believe this is customer satisfaction, and I believe this is organizational effectiveness, and this is what we as a company believe and stand for. Because even if you have values, if they're not put into words and action, if they're not put into action, they're just mere words to be remembered. I did see your values. It talks about integrity, trust, safety. I think, safety. And one of your Glassdoor comments spoke about safety is one of your fabulous prima facie about Schindler. Glassdoor, many people spoke about safety at work. Okay, it's a great positioning to take. And who is the community that wants to be the most safest? It's the women. So, how can you really reposition safety as you're going in differentiator? See, integrity, trust are very innate. They come from upbringing. They play a very important, like integrity, we never had it as one of our values. Primarily, we said if you do not have integrity, you can't be part of our company. Because if you don't, because we work with we work with customer money. Customer money, you can't have no integrity, right? Integrity, because you can't take it, and we still had frauds in the banks. So, while in Schindler, because of the nature of the work, integrity probably plays a very important role. How do you bring that into action? And that's where I think HR partnership plays a very important role in driving it. We did that beautifully in the bank. There are some great examples of other organizations like IBM. Aditya Birla presently is doing fabulous work on mentorship from practitioners. I think those are great learnings which you all can adopt. But I also clearly want to say one thing. Please rely on your internal leaders to make the impact. Bringing in external leaders with their examples to validate may not be the true story, because your business is different, your environment is different. So we used a pool of our internal leaders to promote. And this was something I learned from ICICI, to be honest. I picked all those practices as a user of those services and demonstrated it in my bank because I could make the impact, because I was part of the core team that set up the bank. So it was easier for me to make an impact. So those learnings I truly believe you should implement.
Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, the best practices that you have seen in the industry throughout your journey. Especially the aspect of values, I feel as much important as values are, it's also important that we cascade it down, reiterate it, and imbibe in our colleagues. So thank you so much, Shanta, for sharing that.
My pleasure, Chinmay. And
do you have any questions in the audience? Because we have a couple online. Okay, so one interesting question that I've come across is how can women in middle management prepare themselves for senior leadership roles? And I think this question is really important because it's a leaking pipeline, right? The middle management, new fathers, new mothers, juggling their new roles with the societal norms that are already set in place. So some advice for people who are in the middle management and how can they proceed further in their careers?
So, there was a study by IIM Ahmedabad, and, I had also participated in the study, and I, got some feedback. Women are leaving organizations when their husbands do well. Okay, so I just want to reiterate to each one of you that it's not about women or men. If you're better than your husband in the profession that you have taken, please stay on the course. Yeah. You're the fortunate one who can carry the baby. The men we could have delegated it, we could have delegated it, but God has designed us. So being a mother, I've been twice over, okay, a mom. So being a mother is something that it's expected of you. So being unprepared, or make a choice, I don't want kids. My career comes with it. It's also a choice, right? You can still have a pet or whatever else, right? Even taking care of a pet is a nightmare today. It's not easy. I have one at home, over and above my children. It's a full-time job. My question to all middle managers, men or women, is don't leave what you actually started out with. Whenever you're at that crossroad, which I've been multiple times in my career, is remember the first time you got that appointment letter and how excited were you with your first job that you walked into. With, dreams in your eyes to say, I'm going to make a difference to my family, to my life. And please stay on that course, because that course of that excitement of the first time, the first time you get married, because these times more than once, but the first time you got married or the first time you went out and, whatever you did the first time, there was some excitement. The first offer letter, that excitement of walking into an office the first time, first day, getting your own desk, getting your first laptop, getting that little photograph of your name as an employee and you sending photographs to your parents about that time. Remember that whenever you're on your crossroad. And middle managers, it's the toughest phase is the middle manager. Because you're suddenly from an individual performer have to lead a team and guide a team. And you yourself have not learned empowerment. Okay, learn to delegate, learn to empower, and learn to ask when you're at a crossroad. I think you need to question, and women especially, even if your husband does well. Okay, first of all, choose the husband properly so that you get the right guy in the first round itself. Okay, if it needs you to have 25 boyfriends before you choose that husband, please go through that process if you're incapable to make a decision. And then marry the right guy, because the right guy is important for your long-term journey of a career. Okay, it will come, husband will come, mother-in-law will come, sister-in-law will come, their extended family will, you suddenly have to call mummy to an unknown person. Okay, one fine morning. Be prepared for it and just stay on the course, because that is your future and that is your ambition. And please stay there. But I seriously say, choose your partner well. Okay, no mistakes there. No mistakes there. We are short on time because I think Vaibhav is getting palpitations. We have 1 minute to go.
Well, I started, so I'm going to finish.
Yeah.
All right, so you spoke a lot about how women should ask and women should speak up. And I think women like you and women like us who are sitting here in these forums, a lot of us have the privilege of asking, of having parents, partners, support systems who gave us that learning or ability to ask and push and be assertive. That's not true for a lot of women. We come from Bombay, we come from Delhi, Bangalore, tier 1 cities where we have the education, resources,
Sure.
language, all of those spaces to say
Sure.
and ask, right?
Sure.
How do we, not only as women who have that kind of power in our hands, and the men who clearly do have that dominant stature in society, enable these women to ask, because it's not easy. So how
Sure.
do we do that?
Sure. So let me tell you, it's not surprising, because in our industry, which is even more remote, our branches, if you see, they'll be in villages and all of that. So it's even more remote than the organizations that I'm talking to. One of the things that you need to do is, I said women don't help women. Okay, if you are a strong woman who can make an impact for another weak, meek woman, be that woman. Okay, because men may not be able to play that path very well. Therefore, I said a strong woman sitting out of a metro with a powerful role and a powerful job who can be an influencer should be the person who should be reaching out to that person. And please have enough forums for them to talk about it. And that forum you will get when you really connect with your people at the ground level. You go to a plant, and we've done it, okay, because, I'll tell you, one of our biggest challenges was we took over an existing 70-year-old bank. There were no toilets in that bank, yeah. You had to use a neighbor's house or you had to use whatever. I was head of branch banking. I said, women need a loo, damn it. You can't function. मैं, इकडे जाते, मी तिकडे जाते, शेजारी जाते, and all that, all that kind of stuff. And so the first thing was, I was an influential woman. I was sitting in the management committee. Getting a toilet, it was not a Modi event, yeah. It's not a Modi event, right? It's an event that you have to have a toilet in a branch. We revamped our branches. We got the toilets up and running. We changed our branches. We did all of that because I had the power to change. If you have the power to change and you're a strong woman, please help other women. I think men do it well. I strongly believe men support each other in many situations far better. And I request all the men who are sitting there in those far-fetched places, please help reach the strongest woman in the center. You know, you never say a nagging husband, right? You say a nagging wife. Why? Because women, when they catch something and they really want to make an impact, they will stick to it like leeches and suck the blood out of that person till that damn toilet
You can
is
see all the
up and
men
running.
grinning over here.
Okay, you know it, right? You please use the nagging wife in the corporate office who can make that impact for a problem that you are facing with some woman or man in your setup, to just direct that. Use the political influence there. That's why I say horizontal leadership is far more critical than vertical leadership. मैं कर दूंगा यार, तू टेंशन मत ले, मैं बात करूंगा, मैं कॉर्पोरेट ऑफिस जा रहा हूं, मैं बात करूंगा. It doesn't work. It is about how have you been able to pick up the phone and tell the HR head or whoever, sorry, no offense, to pick up and say, boss, you know, मेरा ये करके रखो, ये काम करके रखो. I think for me that is the day when a woman is truly emancipated and can help another woman to be the so-called meek person, to come out in the open. You know, we are privileged, yeah, we speak better. So Disha, you know, that's how I would put it.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you
worked
so
for
much.
me.
So happy to get any of these calls. My number, you know where to get it.
So sweet.
Okay, so
I think
we
this
wrap
is
up?
the last question. We have
Yes,
crossed
so
the time.
thank you so much, Shanta. I know I'll hand it over to you to really officially close, but I think thank you so much. I took so many things away from the conversation, but what stands out is really the outcome-driven approach that we all have to, irrespective of our gender, and that mindset that we have to come to work with. I think what also stood apart for me was the fact that fear authority, don't fear authority rather, sorry, my
please
bad.
do
And
not.
respect authority but don't fear it, and make your choices. Your career is intentional, leadership is intentional, inclusion is intentional. It doesn't happen on its own, and it's a choice we make on an everyday basis. And then the last thing that you said around
Be the nagging wife.
be the nagging person to get things done for the community around you. So I think be relentless in that and be persistent and be the change you want to see, as Mahatma Gandhi said, right? Mahatma Gandhi said
Yes,
it, right?
yes.
As he said. So thank you very much.
My pleasure, totally.
I had an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and now to Disha to officially close it. Thank you.
Thank you, yeah, thank you. Really loved it.
Thank you everyone for being here. Clearly this was as entertaining as it was educational and informative, and I'm so glad we were able to take so much from this session. I think particularly what stood out to me about what you said about failure, I think a lot of us are really afraid of failure in this world of so much exposure, so much scrutiny that we live in. So for the men and for the women, fail a little, it's okay. You know, we fall and we get up and it's going to be okay. So thank you for being here. I'm gonna get one of, Webhub, can you just join me here? We can give Shanta her nice gift and bouquet that we got for her.
Oh my God,
and
thank
we
you
can-
so much. It's nice to be respected without the chair. Thank you.
Yeah, Tarunesh and Priyam, if you all could come over. Tarunesh is a part of our management team. He leads our
Thank you.
existing
Thank you for
installation.
being a part and sitting through this whole thing. Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh my God, this is too much. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Come, let's have a picture together, everybody on the other side. Can we take a picture?
I
the four
carry
of us?
weights, you know, so it's okay. Itna to utha sakti. Thank you, Priya. Lovely
Priyam,
meeting
Priyam,
you.
come.
So I'll take this off.
No, why don't
Too
you?
much. Oh, you want me to hold this?
Maybe the-
Can you hold,
yeah.
hold this? Yeah, I don't want the bouquet. Yeah. Just make sure none of my wrinkles are visible, huh? That photograph of yours.
Okay, thank you to the
Thank you if you
audience
say
here
so.
for listening to us and everybody who joined on call. Thank you Disha, Chinmay, Vaibhav, Chetan, PD, and if I've missed anybody else's name, apologies, but thank you to everybody who organized it. Excellent, and thank you so much for your time. Happy weekend, and
Thank you
Happy
for
weekend to
calling
you
me.
too.
Thank you, Disha, for initiating it, and thank you, Reba, for organizing Chinmay, and of course, Jyoti, and thank you to the audience who sat through the whole thing. I really truly appreciate your time on a Friday evening.
Thanks.
We've got better things to do.
And thanks from Nitin. I know he couldn't be here, but
So while we leave the room, we have some snacks arranged at the back. Please collect them before you go.